What's up, friends? You know what time it is. Time for Color Magic, your Magic Gaming podcast, where we talk about all types of issues that affect gamers at and away from your gaming tables and computers. I am your host, PowrDragn, and for 281 episodes, still got my main man trying to make sure we don't have to pinch pennies too hard. Brian Sonic, how's it going, dude?
I was gonna say, when you said you know what time it is for gamers our age, that could be hammer time, it could be Vader time, clobbering time. There's any number of
Shoot,
times
it might
it
be
could
time to
be.
go to the upper room. Like, dude,
All
we
of
getting
these
up there.
things. Yeah.
Oh man, there is a lot to talk about this week. We have some bannings on cheaters. We've got tariff stuff that's affecting our games left and right. We have some canceled stuff. This is going to be a mess this week. We got a lot to cover for real. So before we get into it, don't forget you can go to patreon.com/colormagic if you want to support the show. We really appreciate it. And we'll get your shout out just like Benjamin Routier. And I don't even know if it's a Routier, but I put a little bit of spice on that one. So if it ain't, that's how you pronounce it. It looks French. So you know.
There you go.
But either way, thanks for being a patron. But man, let's start with the story. This is a follow-up story, actually. We told you about how there was a guy caught cheating playing in an NRG tournament with like cut different color sleeves and cards in his lap and the whole 9 yards. Well, we got an announcement from NRG. They actually put this out publicly and basically said the dude's banned from our series for life. So Connor Pattinson will never play in an NRG series event again, which is a big deal because they basically run cash tournaments throughout the whole year. So if he's anywhere in their area where they run tournaments, he's just missing a lot of opportunity. But I'll give a quick read here to their Twitter post. But it says, Magic players with integrity, the NRG series welcomes you. He says, cheating, on the other hand, is unwelcome in NRG series events. During NRG Madison, a player was disqualified in the top 8, referring to Connor. The investigation was led by our judges, ruled that cheating and lying to our tournament officials obviously isn't going to fly. The subsequent work of concerned players who reviewed the game footage make it very clear that the cheating was premeditated and occurred multiple times throughout the tournament. Players in our events deserve to know that tournament integrity is upheld at the NRG series. To this end, all infractions of unsporting conduct, cheating, will be reviewed. After a thorough review of this qualification in Madison, we came to the conclusion that the cheats involved were egregious and premeditated. So thus, the infracting player is banned from competing in all future NRG events. The other cool thing here is since he was disqualified in the top 8, he was not allowed to collect his prize. And they got with his opponent and decided how to donate the money. So they donated it to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, which is actually pretty cool too. So something good came out of this, because they said they're not trying to profit by not giving the money. They made sure they're donating it to charity. So
You may know more the legal reason than I do. Like, why are they not naming him specifically?
That I don't know. I'm sure there's something there from their side. They were probably told not to say his name particularly or whatever.
Yeah, I guess in the event he wants to try to take this to court, maybe.
Yeah,
Even though we got video evidence. I mean, it's blatantly obvious.
Oh, sure. It's probably just saving themselves the time of having to go through it. You know, it's kind of the same reason that is at least speculated, because they didn't say publicly, why Wizards had to do away with just the banned players list or whatever publicly, because supposedly a couple of folks made a stink. There was some legal thing about it. And then sometime a year after that was all settled, it kind of just went away. So the other thing, though, I will say, and I can't name names just yet, but I have heard through the grapevine that at least one of the other big tournament organizers and one of the mid-sized ones are at least looking into this, and they may also be banning him from their events. If so, that means that this dude will pretty much never have a chance to play on the Pro Tour or World Championships, because there's been word that he's still playing at local stores trying to win a qualification. But the thing is, if you qualify for a regional event, you have to play at one of these other big TO's events because they organize them. So if they ban you, you can't go anywhere.
What an experience that must be, trying to play somewhere after getting caught cheating by the world. That's got to just
be... Oh, yeah.
Especially if he's going to end up not being able to qualify for anything. What an exercise. So yet another reason to not do that to yourself. Because in this era, you're going to get caught.
The crazy thing, and this is like what we talked about before, if somebody's willing to do it on camera, it means that they have done it enough that they have just gotten overly confident about it.
Right.
Because, it's one thing if you think, okay, nobody's watching me. I'm kind of playing a person. I'm on the last table on the end of a row up against a wall or whatever. Nobody's or whatever, right? But when you're on camera, it's like you've got a couple of judges. There's a camera facing you. There's a overhead camera on the battlefield. Like
Yeah.
you're likely going to be seen, and that's exactly what
You
happened.
would have to be David Blaine, and this dude clearly is not.
Hell, even David Blaine probably wouldn't do it because their tricks work because they're able to hide certain angles. You know
Also
what I mean?
true.
Like if you had two cameras and people walking around you, like you're probably going to get spotted, you know? So yeah, kind of a crazy situation, but it is cool to see that, they just took charge, said, cool, dude's not at our events anymore. And
I have a friend that's a magician. Now I want to see if he could do it.
there
Maybe.
now, it's funny you say that. There is a social media channel, and I wish I could remember their name, but one of them is an actual magician and one of them isn't. So one of them does the tricks in front of a camera, and the other one tries to spot it in slow-mo where he does the trick,
Okay.
which is actually kind of fun. If I find it, I'll share it with you if it pops up on my feed again. But I see them like once a week or something trying to do stuff. It's pretty cool. But it is difficult. Like you realize how much with a camera on you that even a thing that is nearly invisible, there's that one spot where it's like, oh,
Right.
that looks abnormal. Let's rewind and let's look at this frame by frame, and you can see where the change is.
One of the reasons so many magicians would have a half naked woman as their
Well, of course,
sidekick to
it's a
help,
distraction.
yeah. Like you didn't
That's
see what was happening because you weren't looking at the magician.
yep, that's how it works. That's not an accident. But yeah, I think this is likely, if I were guessing, this is probably going to become the new norm now that it's
Yeah.
set and it's public. And now you have the big TOs getting involved in doing it. I think that makes it okay for everybody else, because
Absolutely. I mean, there could not be any more evidence short of him holding up a note saying, "Hey, I'm cheating to win," a la Eddie Guerrero.
yeah, that's the other thing too. This isn't a case where you accidentally drew an extra card or played an extra thing, or maybe you lost count of stuff because y'all were going over things. And, you know, this is literally like kind of like you said, it's premeditated. Like you had extra cards in the same color sleeves that you could pull up that were literally extra copies of things in your deck. Like it looks bad no matter how you do it. It has to be cheating. There's no other explanation, right? So yeah, it's a good thing. Obviously, nobody's going to feel bad for Connor in this situation. This is one of those things you brought on yourself. But I really do hope this becomes a new norm because I think at a lower level there are judges and TOs that are always like, okay, we're gonna disqualify the person, but I don't know if we're comfortable banning them forever from our store. We don't want to be the team or the store that gets that rep or whatever. But now that you have other people doing it, it
To
now
me, I would
becomes
look,
okay
and
for everybody.
again, I never have, and at this point, probably never will own a game store. I would want the rep of, hey, if you get caught cheating, you don't get to play here
Oh,
anymore.
I booted a couple people from our store.
That doesn't sound like a bad rep to have to me.
Yeah, but you never know because there's clicks at stores and whatever,
Yeah,
and
also true for a local store. It literally like might be, hey, if the cheaters don't show up, we go out of business. It's sad, but
yeah. So
those
there's
are the
some weird spots,
considerations.
but I think just normalizing this whole thing, now we start to go, okay, cool. There's a reason you don't get to play in their tournaments. Why is that? Now as a TO, you can check in and be like, oh yeah, we don't want them at our tournaments either. And this is just the first one, right? This is one we got on film in a top 8. Like, it,
Exactly. There's no way this is his first time doing that.
yeah, and it'd be interesting to see how many more we have come through over the next year or two that we just start saying, hey, we just don't want you around. Let's
Because
just make life easy.
I don't see how you get that comfortable at cheating if you've only done it one time. They're just like you said to try it on camera. You had to just be completely convinced of like, yeah, I got this. I can do this. This will work. There's no problem here. It's okay.
Oh yeah, and if you really get busted or end up on the list of, I would say 3 or 4 of the largest TOs, you effectively can't play anything, not for
Yeah.
any stakes, because they're running the regional championships, they're running the Magicons, they're running the Command Fests, like so you just end up not being able to do a bunch of anything. I mean, you're basically, if this goes the way it sounds like it's going to go, he's basically gonna be persona non grata. You can play at some local stores, but you can never play for any big prizes anywhere.
And again, that local store experience has to be something something unique,
Yeah, and that's if the local stores don't ban you. You know
right?
what I mean? But that's the only place right now he's gonna be able to play eventually. So that's kind of crazy. But all right, let's get into the soapbox because I have a thing I do want to gripe about. All right. Let me say this is about people communicating online, particularly on social media things, but there's really two issues here. The first is if you're going to comment on something, at least try to keep it relevant to what they're doing and what they're saying or the video that you're watching or whatever. It's really weird to have somebody just post a thing and derail a conversation talking about something that has nothing to do with the video. Like I've literally had stuff up where I'm talking about a thing, and then somebody mentioned something about a whole other format. And I'm like, what does that have to do with the standard video that you're watching right now? Like, I don't, did you click on the wrong thing and not watch the video? Like, I don't, it's just weird. And then you're derailing the conversation. So then I have to go in and just let me just delete this because this is just not benefit to anybody, whatever. And then somebody's getting mad. It's like, oh, so you're on here just like regulating your stuff and censoring people. I'm like, bro, you weren't even talking about anything on the video. Like, you're not helping anything. Like, what's the point of even being here? But my bigger issue is don't make comments as an expert about something you know nothing about. We are seeing way too much of that lately on every topic, it seems like. Like, I've watched stuff where guys showing home inspections of why a thing's wrong, and then somebody's going, well, actually, and I'm like, bro, this guy's been doing home inspections for 30 years. He's got all these credentials. Like, and a bunch of other home inspectors in the comments are agreeing with him. And it's like, dude, just shut up. Don't fight the fight. Like 10 experts don't agree with you. Just let it die, man. What are you doing? But we see it on everything. I'm just like,
Yeah.
just stop. Just stop. Like, I don't even understand what the benefit is. Because, like, if somebody does listen to you, they're getting the wrong information. So now you're harming somebody else for following whatever logic or strategy or recipe or whatever it is you're giving them when it doesn't work.
They used to say you're entitled to your own opinion, not your own facts. But in our current era, people feel entitled to their own facts.
Yeah.
We are in the era of, as somebody once said, alternative facts. That's where we are right now.
Hell, I saw a video, a dude doing lawn care, which, by the way, has a beautiful yard. Like, obviously knows what the hell he's doing. And he's like clearing some space for a flower bed, and he's taking the chunks left over because he's going to fill in this muddy spot at the back of his yard or whatever. And there's people going, oh, this is a waste of time. That tool doesn't work. This thing isn't going to work to regrow grass. Well, I'm like, can you not tell this person obviously knows what they're doing? Like, have you looked at everything they've created? Like, it's probably going to be all right. And then, of course, fortunately, he came back with the receipts and like, remember all you people who said this doesn't work? Ta-da, it worked. And I was like, yeah, now they're just going to find something else to complain about. Like,
Those are the best, really.
people, we got to stop, especially when it comes to like gaming stuff, whatever. Like, you don't know what you're talking. Hell, I still get it. And I'm like, bro, I literally know people in the industry. I have people in the industry in my phone. I have spent the night at their houses. They have come
Right.
to my wedding. Like if I don't know, can't talk to people, who else is? You know what I mean? Like, literally, and I even tell people on the show, if we don't know, I will tell you this is speculation or based on what I know, like whatever. The times it's actually
Well, how
facts, I
many
will.
times since we've been doing this have we said something like, for example, when we talked about Universes Beyond, the one we were both unsure about was Assassin's Creed. Lo and behold, Assassin's Creed turns out to be a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough because as creators, we do need to be responsible, right? And say when we're using facts,
Yeah.
when we're not, when we're speculating, whatever, which I
Yeah,
try
and
to
I'll tell
do.
you when, hey, okay, this is my opinion, but again, I've been covering gaming for more than 20 years now. It is a fairly educated opinion.
Yeah, it's just tough, man. I get it. People are probably struggling and they're just frustrated and they just want to be heard and need to be right, but you can learn so much more if you just don't put wrong facts out there and just read and listen to what other people are saying and doing that are actual experts. Just give them a chance. Hell, I had a video this week because when new sets come out, I do, hey, these are the cards you should probably be going after or crafting. These are the ones you shouldn't. Just to help people with the resources when a new set comes out. Literally had somebody go, well, a bunch of these cards are going to be good in Commander and whatever. And I'm like, bruh, I'm on a standard channel making standard decks, and I'm telling people not to craft these so they don't get into a trap, and I'm helping them. Your facts don't change anything. The video's still 100% accurate. What the hell are we doing? Right? But you just need to be heard saying, and it was multiple people who did it. So I'm not putting this on any one person, but it's like, what was the point of that comment? Right? It didn't change anything. But anyway, that's my rant. I'll pass it over to you.
All right, remember, I don't know how many podcasts ago it was, but when we talked about how Wizards was going to stop printing Magic cards in the Portuguese and a couple of other languages. And well, fast forward to now, after kind of pulling back a lot of their outreach efforts in Brazil, Wizards of the Coast needs a little bit of Brazil's help because apparently one of their distributors accidentally sent out some Final Fantasy kits. Not anything that necessarily Wizards themselves did. Apparently, a Brazilian distributor did it. Now they're asking, "Hey, we really need those cards back." And of course, the Magic Twitter, and I guess you could say if Brazilian Twitter /X is a thing, had all the receipts of, hey, I saw so much of the Vin Diesel meme, and like, oh, the problem is you think you're still in America. It's just sometimes, because we talked about like, hey, we get it, you're saving money. Sometimes you got to pull back and save money, but then sometimes, things happen. Now you need help for the people in Brazil, and well, bridges have kind of been burned. So, I'm sure some people will help some people, and they're within their rights to be like, F you, please track down your own Magic cards. So I'm sure
Yeah,
we'll hear more about this story.
there's probably some people asking, like, if you're not in Portuguese, why are there cards there? There's just being printed in English or whatever neighboring language and still being shipped into the country. So makes sense why there's cards still going to Brazil. But yeah, cards getting out early. That's a thing that the distributor's gonna have to deal with from on high. Like
Yeah.
that's their mistake.
So this is again another case where people in Brazil who were just playing Magic did nothing wrong, but
Yeah.
the penalty is going to obviously, like I said, something will happen to the distributor. But like if they get cut off, who is going to suffer? The people that are getting cards from that distributor are going to be the main people to suffer. So
Yeah, I also will say, just for full transparency, because when this happens, it comes up and somebody always asks us if we're going to talk about it, but we don't talk about any spoilers. I don't do that on any of my content. I don't do that in our Discord. Like, I do my best with any brand or anything I'm working with to protect the integrity of the thing till the actual previews start. Plus, from the creator side, I know people put in time and planning to make videos and articles and cosplay and whatever for the preview season. So I'm also not trying to ruin anything that they're doing. So one of those things out there, but we won't be talking about individual cards. But yeah, dude, I'm with you. It's one of those things where it's tough to go and say like, it's been kind of like a string of negative news, and then like you kind of need some support. Like you can't expect a lot,
yeah, you just
you know.
that's part of why sometimes it's sometimes worth it to spend a little more money, do a little more outreach, because good lord, how every time a set comes out, something gets opened that wasn't supposed to, something gets shipped somewhere that isn't supposed to, and when that happens, you kind of need people on the ground to if you see something, say something, basically.
You know the funny thing to me, and this is this goes back to like the Pinkerton things and stuff
Yeah,
before that. Sheets being sold on the market, whatever. There's always a group of people who seem to think that if they show the first thing, or they break the story, or they crack the product first, or they get stuff from the facility, that's somehow going to be a windfall for them. Like some magical number of views, some big pile of cash. Actually, the one dude who stole some sheets and tried to sell them, I think this was back in like 2016 or 2017, I think. Like he actually ended up getting felony level charges because he sold stolen goods for well above what because they fetched a premium because they didn't exist on the market. So that pushed the dollar value so high. So he ended up getting a bigger penalty than he would have gotten otherwise. but nothing ever really comes from that for as far as I can tell ever, but it has to be at least for the overwhelming majority of people. Like we've seen
I'll say that
people.
the people that end up profiting and getting anything from it are the people that don't reveal who they are. Like
Yep.
there's a Mutt Leaks. I don't think they've been wrong about a Madden thing they dropped yet. And I'm sure somebody knows who they are. I don't.
Yep.
There's somebody out there knows probably, I'm sure nobody at EA knows who they are or they wouldn't be still leaking stuff. So that is the thing. You got to be Batman. You can, you can be known, but your identity can't be known. Or guess what? Yeah,
Yeah.
Pinkertons or somebody going to come have a chat with you.
And that's the thing, right? I think a lot of people are putting it out there thinking, okay, I'm going to get all these views on my YouTube channel. I'm going to get all these TikTok views. People are going to start following me, whatever. And it just doesn't happen. Like they're there for the immediate news,
Yeah.
but then they're gone after that.
Because unless
And
you
what's
got some
worse,
way to break this news every time again, like Butt Leaks and other
yeah,
people do, and most people don't. Most people like the people you talk about, it gets into their hands either by theft or by accident, and it's not a repeatable phenomenon.
exactly, right? It works in sports because you get a couple of insiders at a certain organization or whatever. So now you can report early injuries or what's going on with infighting in a locker room or whatever, right? You get that information. So you become the source that people trust. But it also takes you reporting on 4, 5, 6 things in a row for people to go, man, this person's not been wrong the last couple times. We should
And
probably
to be
listen to him.
clear, some of them do the same thing that a psychic does. They'll take a thing where it's
Sure.
like, let's say, are the Giants going to draft Shador or Sanders? There's only two answers: yes or no. You got a 50% chance of being right or wrong.
Sure, sure.
I have no inside information for New York Giants. I got the same 50% chance of being right or wrong that Daquan has.
Oh
So
yeah.
some people go out there like, hey, I got a thing, because what do you tout? Like a psychic, you tout the 3 or 4 times you
Oh
were
yeah.
right. You know?
But I would also say they have a lot of opportunities to mix in more opportunities to be right.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, when a lot of people get the product, it's stolen or accidental. And you're not going to be able to do that for every single set.
Nope.
So even if you get another shot, it's going to be so far between, you can't maximize those efforts. And I think that's what we see all the time.
Yeah.
And I've told people before, because somebody said, well, what if you got this product? What'd you do with it? I was like, I wouldn't say a damn thing. If anything, I'd probably contact the right people and say, hey, I don't know if y'all know, right?
Yeah.
But I'm also not going to be the one that puts it out in the public because I already know ain't nothing going to come from it. The other part is, I've seen this when you get preview cards. From the time you put it up, it's on spoiler sites within 15 minutes.
Right.
So if people don't even come to you initially, unless you're tagged in some news story or report or something or whatever, people are just going to the favorite spoiler sites and looking stuff up. So
And
you don't even
spoiler
get all the
sites,
credit.
a lot of times don't cite people.
Yep.
They didn't necessarily go to journalism school. They just know there's a leak.
Yeah. So I don't know. Let that just be a word to the wise. Like that's not a way to shortcut your content growth or get views or whatever. Like even if you do, it's going to be for a single effort, and it's just not worth it.
If we're honest, even some of the people that work for the, in theory, more reputable sites that supposedly, if they didn't go, so whoever's in charge of them, in theory, should have had basic journalistic education. A lot of times, they don't even cite who their sources are or
Yeah.
who they copied and pasted content from.
Yeah, man. I'm just trying to think like it's just not worth it on any level. And there's the added problem, even in the case of this distributor or whatever. Now, other companies you work with or other brands go, okay, well, can we still send you stuff early? Like, is your
Right.
system good? Like, what's going on here? Right. And that's going to be a discussion they have to have with people now because everybody knows. Same thing if you're a creator. Okay, well, now how trustworthy are you? Like, do we have to give you an NDA for every single thing and threaten legal stuff if you say things? You know what I mean? Like, everything becomes a bigger problem now, and it's just not worth it. But all right, let's talk about some fun stuff that we learned this. Not necessarily fun stuff, not the first thing, but we do have a sad thing and a fun thing. So why don't we get the sad thing out of the way?
I mean, it's sad in the respect that we lost somebody, but definitely happy in terms of the legacy this person left. If you're a TV viewer of a certain age, like me and Daquan, you probably remember Bill Mercer, who used to commentate world-class championship wrestling, tell us about Devon Eriks and how powerful the Iron Claw was. Now I live in Texas now. I'm not originally from here. After I moved here, I was working for the paper, and I went to I went to a local book fest that we have, and Bill Mercer was there, and I thought he probably had a book about world class championship wrestling because again, there's a lot that happened with Devon Eriks, especially if you've heard about the movie The Iron Claw or seen that movie. You could do, and many people have done, a whole bunch of books about that. Turns out Bill Mercer had actually done a book about, he covered the JFK assassination. I didn't know that because I only knew him from wrestling. He told me when I talked to him, that's where so many people that meet me know me from, and I'm not upset about that. I'm a part of so many people's childhoods, and I treasure that. But yes, before that, he actually covered the JFK assassination and wrote a book about it. And I mean, and I actually think it's still available on Amazon. It's called When the News Went Live. And I mean, it really, we were just talking about alternative facts, fake news. This is a different era. This is really was when people, yeah, they wanted to be the first one to break the news, but they valued, making sure it was right, making sure, especially the case like covering an assassination, making sure they didn't put out anything that would endanger anybody else. They were literally writing, basically, this is history, and it's happening live in front of you. They're going back and reading his book, watching him on TV. That just phenomenal. He obviously, Dan Rather is somebody else that covered that, worked on that, and obviously you see the career that Dan Rather had from doing that. But yeah, he is, as I said, Bill Mercer's left us, but he left a great legacy. He also taught locally at some of the universities, taught journalism and public speaking for a long time. So they're in his learning tree, if I may use that term. There are journalists, there are public speakers, some people that are both actors and journalists on occasion. Just he
Yeah.
gave back to so many people. So again, it's sad that he's gone, but definitely we are happy with all the knowledge that he left us. And I said, by all means, the book is a great read. If you can find that, definitely worth picking up because it really is, just the journalism. We, in a lot of ways, don't see that kind of journalism as much as we need to. Back then, I think that was an era when I would say almost everybody trusted their local TV news person. Especially they're
Yeah.
national. If Walter Cronkite said it, for the most part, people really believed it. Felt like they knew it was true. You trusted Walter Cronkite to give it to you, just the facts, as they would say. That's an era that I don't know if we may. I
Dude,
can't envision ever seeing it again, especially in the era we are currently in.
I would say the first time I probably heard him might have been when he was doing something for the Sportatorium,
Right?
which is forever ago. I
Yeah.
mean, which by the way, y'all don't even know. Like, if you're not an old school wrestling fan, like the Sportatorium, they made look gigantic. Like,
Yeah.
it looked like it was epic. But bro, the
Right.
first time I rolled up to the Sportatorium and that place was just like a shack, I was so disappointed. Like, you have no idea. I was just like, what? Like, that parking lot maybe look like it holds like 200 people. You know what I
They
mean? Like,
did so, yeah, but they really did do a good job. People, if you listen to us, we don't look down on the wrestling because there are so many lessons you can learn just in terms of acting, TV production, like you were
oh
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
We thought the Sportatorium was, Madison Square Garden from the way they made it look and made it feel on TV. They lessons in how to make
Oh yeah.
everything look
And the
larger
announcers are a
than life.
big part of that, right? Like
Right?
getting you so riled up, making the people seem larger than life, and you're just buying into it.
I
You
mean,
don't
how
even
many times have
bother.
you seen memes online of you take, for example, there's a great one where Jim Ross narrates all your favorite video game
Yeah.
moments. My God, how could he? How could you son of a bitch? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, man. That's just one of those ones that like classic, dude with a good legacy,
great.
can't be too upset. If you get that quality of a life, then, count me
Exactly.
in.
When your career ranges from JFK to Abdullah the Butcher, you can say
Yep.
you have seen and done it all.
So yeah, I have kind of a fun thing because just randomly, and this was earlier today, I started thinking about who is the first black board game creator? Because I don't know this off the top of my head. I was just like, let me go do some digging. And there's a lot of assumptions on people who were part of the production or creation of certain games, but they don't get actual creator credits.
Right.
So it's hard to verify how much it was their idea, not their idea, whatever. The first one, though, we could find is actually only from 1982. Like you would think it would be further back than that, but 1982, there's a dude from Memphis. His name is Dr. Larry Moore, and he created a game called Black Progress, which is basically to showcase the history of Black America in a board game. And hadn't heard of it, hadn't heard of the person, so I went and looked it up. You can actually still find copies for sale on like eBay and stuff. So like there's some out in the world. Some people purchased them, but thought that was kind of cool. And then I also found out in 2020, I guess he got with his son and they did an updated version of it. So his son also gets creator credits on a board game, which I
That's
thought was
awesome.
kind of neat. Just one of those random things that like I felt like I should know that being a gamer nerd,
Definitely.
having sold board games as long as I have, whatever, just
Yeah.
never heard of the person. So I figured, okay, that's going to be the thing I share with everybody because
Yeah.
I feel like we should all know that, and I don't know why I don't.
I had been writing about video games for years. It wasn't until one of my kids had a Black History project that I found out that video game cartridges were created by a Black man, Gerald Lawson. So yeah, I
Yeah,
was embarrassed to not know that then. So that's been something I share, every Black History Month.
yeah. Video games have 3 or 4 big Black creators in the early stages of video game production and creation, which is kind of cool. Because again, we talk a lot about having Black History Month and this, that, and the other, but it's just like I don't think you realize like how many things you use or enjoy that actually had Black people involved in them. To just assume
Great,
they didn't contribute anything, it's just like slow down, go look. There's a lot of everyday
right.
stuff that around your house, in your car,
The
whatever.
traffic light. Somebody Black created the traffic light.
Yep, it's crazy, but yeah, fun fact. Just thought everybody would enjoy knowing that because I thought it was a kind of a neat thing. But let's get into our topics for the week. All right. Well, this is one thing we're gonna have to talk about, whether you like politics or not. Yeah, tariffs. I don't care what side you're on politically; they're gonna suck for all of us, and it's already started. We
Like I
have,
said, we're both of us are on the side where we don't like paying more for stuff. That's usually a
yeah,
thing that we can
agreed,
all agree on.
agreed. But I will tell you, like, if you follow any of the big game stores and stuff online, there have been several social posts over the last week of them breaking down how much stuff's going to cost, how many of their titles they carry that they're probably going to have to cut back. I've seen people talking about how much all their stuff's likely to go up, how they're going to increase the price of snacks or tournament entries or whatever to offset some things. Honestly, I've even seen, and I called one of my friends who is still in distribution, but it's pretty much being told to a lot of retailers at your local game stores like, hey, if you need certain supplies and things or whatever, it's better to just buy them now if you have the budget, because what we get in the next 4 to 6 weeks very likely is going to be more expensive. Now, as of this morning, a lot of the tariffs were halted except for China, but that still doesn't mean they're not going to be applied in the future. And with everybody
And for
being
China,
uncertain,
that's because for understand China produces something I believe I read earlier and then wrote about earlier that so like 70% of the toys that are imported into America, and I think board games are technically classified as
mm-hmm,
toys because that's why Toys R Us used to sell them, or I think they
yep.
still do because there are little Toys R Us is kind of sort of back in some pockets, and I think they still sell, especially the Life, Monopoly, those kind of games. So they consider as toys.
But it's not just that, it's parts for a lot of things, right?
Also,
A lot of, even when things are produced from different countries, like they'll get this part from China, they'll get this part from Malaysia, they'll get this part from Germany, whatever, and then it gets assembled in a warehouse or production facility somewhere. I mean, I was reading something even the other day, just cars in the US, a bunch of them have as many as 40% international parts,
mhm.
because of the cost of metals and everything else. Like, it's a whole thing. But yeah, it's gonna affect your local game stores if this goes through. So some of them may not even be able to keep their doors open because you're talking about if costs go up and they have to pass that on. Now they're going to be making fewer sales. Their margins are tighter because they're not going to be able to pass on the whole value a lot of the
Right.
times. So they're going to have to eat a couple of percentage points. And if they're already scraping by at the end of the year, you're talking about, well, they might have to eat 8 or 10K. That's a lot for a lot of businesses, you
For
know?
video games, we're already seeing that apparently Nintendo Switch pre-orders have been halted in the US and then in Canada because of its proximity. In
Mm-hmm.
Canada, they're like, we didn't put any tariffs on anybody. Sell us the Nintendo Switch too, please.
Yeah, and who knows? That might have to do with trade routes, freight. Who knows where they're shipped into? I got no idea. But you're right. I mean, even in video games, we saw that last week where Nintendo just said outright, like, "Hey, for now, we don't even know what it's going to cost, so we'd rather not
Right.
even promise anybody anything,"
And
which is
for the
fair. You
yeah,
know, like if I
they
don't
gotta,
know,
they gotta watch their own bottom line, obviously.
and it's not like it's a cheap item, right? If you're talking
No,
about if you buy the Switch with Mario, which a bunch of people are going to Mario Kart World, that's $500.
right?
And if a tariff gets attached to that, for some of the numbers we're hearing, could be 50% or whatever on some of these things.
And
That's an expensive. That's a whole different price
I'm
bracket
seeing
or
some
price.
people say that apparently Apple's new iPhone 16 could go up to it from around 700 to as much as $1,100. So right now, Apple is, like you said, buying because they can afford to. I was like, they're buying all the product they can and going ahead and importing it before the tariffs end up hitting.
Yeah, and we heard from several companies where people were saying their bosses were telling them, "Hey, we can't give the extra bonuses this year because we have to buy extra supplies and parts right now in anticipation of the tariffs because they didn't know what it was going to be." Right,
Yeah.
and there's a big difference if it ends up being 3, 4, 5%. All right, that sucks, but doable. But when you're seeing some of the numbers we're seeing, where it's 25%, 47%, whatever, that changes a whole business model.
And like we talked about it, because I'm sure we're already starting to get the stuff on App Trigger about like why are you talking about Trump? Like in more than 20 years of writing and talking about video games before, I almost never had to mention the president unless I was talking about civilization or something. But TikTok ban. We had a TikTok ban for a while. Marvel Snap couldn't be logged into.
Yep.
I had no choice but to write about that because Marvel Snap is one of the most popular things we cover. As you would imagine, it's one of the most popular mobile games out there. Nintendo Switches, that's obviously
Yeah, that
half of
was the
what I'm
news
right.
of last week if you're a video
Right.
gamer.
Yeah, that's what we are talking about. So yeah, I didn't have the option of not weighing in. Believe me, that is not what I enjoy waking up and having on my plate, but that's the news I got to cover.
Yeah, and this is why I tell people, like, you have to understand how things work, right? And again, this comes back to people posting information they don't know anything about,
Right.
whatever. Like, so much of what you touch and so much of what you deal with, what you buy, whatever, involves international trade. And that means tariffs are going to affect an insane amount of things. Like, even if you're not aware, farmers use stuff from other countries, like
Right.
different piping and tubing and parts and machinery and whatever, right? That's not all produced in the US. And we can't because we don't have the facility. Even for board games, like to make a lot of that stuff at cost, the same cost here in the States, you'd have to change a whole culture. You'd have to open multiple facilities. So many things would have to change for that to even be possible. We have a few places where we can do it,
Yeah.
but one, they can't do it at the same scale. And even if they could, the cost is already 10 to 15% more. And when you're talking about that much, that's millions of dollars, for some companies.
Nintendo is headquartered in Japan. They ain't they ain't moving it.
Yeah.
Not for any amount of money there will obviously be branches in America, but the majority of the decisions will be made in Japan. That is how Nintendo works. By the way, it's been working brilliantly for them and for everybody else in the video game industry. We don't want we don't want Nintendo's operation torn up. GameStop doesn't want Nintendo's operation jacked. That's American brick and mortar retailers are already circling the drain. One
Yeah.
of the biggest things you buy at GameStop is probably one of the only 2 or 3 times in the year I really go in GameStop. Christmas time, any kind of console launch, because I want to go get the console, pick it up in my own 2 hands, and bring it to my house. I don't want that delivered. I don't want a porch pirate to get a chance to get their
Yeah,
hands on
for
it.
sure.
Consoles are that's big for not just GameStop, Target, Walmart, because people want to go get that, buy it, and bring it back to their house right away. If we think $500, God knows how much it's going to be this year. You want to get a $500 to $700 object in your hand and bring it home in your own vehicle.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where as gamers, we're going to have to be way more discerning about our choices. which means fewer companies are going to make money because people are going to have to get cut out of your budget. Things that you see for even $10, $15 on something like Steam, you may not be able to buy anymore, right? Those little indie projects may not be able to get as many purchases because you're going to have to be tighter with your dollars in different spots, which sucks.
The
But
launch of a console lifts more businesses than you retailers, other games, because okay, some people will buy Mario Kart. There's going to be other games at launch, and they're not. So some of them will be indie. They won't be made by Nintendo. If their game launches and nobody gets to play it, as we've seen this year, all the layoffs, if their big project doesn't hit, that could be it for them.
Yeah.
And you try to go with the console launch because that's when everybody is talking about video games and everybody wants to play the new games. Me and every other site that covers video games are going to have the big, hey, here's the games you need to buy. And we're looking for that game that hasn't already been talked about by everybody else.
And also, to put this in perspective, because there's probably people listening saying, well, they're American companies and get stuff here. Like, understand that even companies like Wizards of the Coast print stuff in multiple facilities. There's stuff printed in Germany, stuff printed in Texas, stuff printed in Japan, right? That different things are printed and they're shipped around to meet the needs of the company. There's companies like Asmodee, which apparently now owns like, I don't know, 40% of all the major titles in board gaming now,
right?
Because they bought up so many people. So like they're a European company. That's going to affect a lot of the board games and development of board games that you like. Games Workshop is in the UK, right? They're another company that you're trying to get those things over here, even though they have facilities here to distribute and everything else. Their stuff is actually HQ'd over in the UK. Like that's going to be a thing if you play miniatures games, right? So many levels of the industry are going to be affected, and I just don't think people understand it yet. So
Microsoft is headquartered here, but the rumor is their next Xbox is going to be essentially like a tablet, a handheld thing. Who'd they get that idea from? Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
They power they have been doing it for years. Everybody else had given up making video games before Nintendo said, we think, because there was a huge, for you young folk, there was a video game crash after Atari. Everybody said it was a fad. Don't play no video games no more. Don't make any video games. Nintendo's like, no,
but
we
you know what
think we
else?
got something.
Those are probably going to have chips from Japan, glass from China, assembled here in the US. Right? That's
Right.
probably what's going to happen. So just even those are going to have international parts.
Yeah.
It's like there's just no way around it. But all right, with that bad news for LGSs and all those posts, they were at least accompanied by some good news, which was this past weekend we had a big pre-release for Tarkir Dragonstorm, and that went beyond well, is the way I would describe it. Most of them talked about selling out a lot of their seats. The ones that didn't sounded like they were no less than 75 to 80% sold out. A lot of the product, as far as like collector's boosters, commander decks, things like that, all got sold. So that's great. A bunch of them are trying to get their hands on more as soon as possible. So, people at least enjoyed playing with dragons and going back to a world setting we hadn't been to in 12 years.
Right.
So that's actually really good. And it sets up even bigger things the rest of the year because now you brought all those people in that are going to be here to be ready for Final Fantasy in a couple months. So it's like, at least they'll have that little, well, I say that we already knew Final Fantasy boosters were going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
They might be even more
Oh my
expensive in 2
God.
months' time. I don't know, but we'll see. At least for now, things are set up to look pretty good, and we can report at least some positive that the LGSs can get a little bit extra money to buy those extra supplies and stuff if they want to get ahead right now while they can, which is nice.
See how much I can get for a kidney. Some
Yeah,
Final
exactly.
Fantasy.
Now, we do sometimes bring up we'll call it the magic visual projects, whether we're talking about animated or movies. And most recently, we heard that the movies, they're going to be partnering with Lionsgate, I believe it was, to do a bunch of the the big things for the actual theatrical release. But the most recent thing I saw that I could find was there's a rumor, and I'm going to call it a rumor because I couldn't find anything saying it's substantiated, but multiple sites are claiming the same story. So there's probably something to it.
Yeah.
But a director I hadn't heard of, it's Matt Johnson. He's an indie director that apparently he's gotten a lot of press recently for a couple of projects, and he's being looked at with Hasbro Entertainment and Legendary to work on the new Magic the Gathering movie. So if you like his stuff or have heard of it, I guess somewhere along the way he's done some stuff at South by Southwest, which makes sense because a lot of indie stuff goes on there.
Yeah.
Some movie or called like Blackberry, like a Nirvana, the band show, the movie, like a couple of random things. But yeah, I hadn't heard of him. I don't know if he's any good. I don't know what
I
his
was gonna say,
background
doesn't that
is.
concern you a little bit that somebody we hadn't heard of
I
is
mean, yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of good indie directors that I don't know about till they do their first big piece too. I
also true, but you don't usually hand them the keys to, because again, if this Magic movie comes out and tanks, that's probably it
sure,
for all the other projects.
but I every year at the Oscars, like this year as a good example, I literally hadn't seen any of the movies that were nominated for Best Picture. So my opinion only can go so far on directors. Like, obviously, everybody in those was great. The directors were good. I didn't know who they were or hadn't seen any of their movies, so I
Yeah,
can't really
and
say much
they
one way or the other.
and until the and now those directors will be up to direct, say, a Marvel movie, a DC movie, but you don't generally start there. Which I mean, again, I'm gonna check out some of his movies and hopefully, I
Yeah, that's
mean,
what I'm saying. He might be good. I can't. I vouch for him one way or the other. I just saw it and went, all right. I mean, now not to be stereotypical, but he does look like one of our nerds. I'm just saying. Like if you see his picture, he looks like he might actually play Magic and know some things. So if
well, I mean,
so,
what director you know that doesn't look like a nerd other
I'm
than
just
Clint
saying.
Eastwood?
I'm just saying
But Quentin Tarantino looks like a nerd.
because
Steven
that could
Spielberg
be
looks like
that could be part of it too, though. I don't know. Maybe he knew somebody at a studio and he has a background in Magic, and we find out, right? Like I'd
until you
be
get to the point where people like Schwarzenegger and Stallone start directing their own movies. Most directors kind of look nerdy because they are nerdy because what did they
yeah, you
do all
have
the
to
rest
on
of it?
some level.
Yeah, because that has been their life. Is trying to figure out how to get their script published. So yeah, they.
But yeah, I don't know. But feel free to go look up a Matt Johnson and see how you feel about his
I
movies.
definitely will.
Because I might, if I have time, at least check out some reviews on some things. Because yeah, I got no idea. But all right, that brings us to the dinner table, and this is going to be a pretty interesting one because we kind of quickly touched on the question in the pre-show, but we'll say that we'll word it this way: who would we say are the top three depictions of black characters in geek media right now? Because I don't know. Because like number one, like first thing that came to my mind was Black Panther,
Yeah, I was gonna say that was the first one
but
that came to
he's
mind for
also
me.
not even around anymore, so he's not going to be the face of Black
Well,
Panther.
but I mean, it's not just the movies. Black
Yeah,
Panther
yeah,
is
yeah.
like I'm literally learning how to play Black Panther and Marvel Rivals. So
That's
while
fair.
Chadwick Boseman is gone, Black Panther himself will always exist.
Okay, that's fair. I can get behind that.
He's got there's another video game coming where it's set in I think 1945 and him and Captain America are fighting Hydra. So yeah,
Nice.
I'm counting everything: board games, video, anything I know
Yeah,
that character
totally
from. I'm
fair.
counting them.
So I guess we have that, and we have Falcon, obviously,
Yeah,
getting
especially
some
right
movies
now.
and the
I would
TV
say
shows.
the first when you brought it up, the first three characters that came to mind for me was obviously Black Panther, Cyborg, because who
Mm,
gets more press
yeah,
over
yeah.
at DC than Cyborg? Teen Titans Go is probably on Cartoon Network right now if I turn it on. It's been the most popular show for years now. So that's the black superhero that is probably in your. If you got any kids or any nephews or anything, Cyborg is on in your house right now in all likelihood.
Yeah, that's fair. Because
He's
I was
also been
thinking,
while Justice League was what it was, he was part of the Justice League in Justice League. So yeah, and those
yeah,
are the big.
because I
That's
had heard
DC's big team.
maybe going forward, you would have a John Stewart as part of the Justice League with
That sounds like
the
where
new
they're going
makeup.
with the Lanterns TV show.
Yeah, so that could be a thing. But as of now, that probably is probably correct. Wow, three comic book characters. Because I was thinking about like fantasy stuff. Like, is there anybody else in like Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever, right now that I would put up there?
Well, definitely, I think Michael Burnham because she's basically the main character on. I want to say is it Star Trek. I forget which one she's. whichever Star Trek show she's on, she is essentially the main character of that show. I can't remember whether it's Discovery or Strange New Worlds. I want to say it's
Yeah.
Discovery, I think.
I was trying to.
I have not gotten my Paramount Plus subscription yet.
That's not a bad pick. I'm just wondering, like, how popular compared to the others. Like, if we
compared to superheroes and not.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, if we put things up, like, has anybody broke? Because, like, at one point we all could have said like Geordie LaForge, and everybody goes, "Yeah,"
right.
You know what I mean? Like, we all know exactly.
She is, you know, if you look for a black character that's the face of Star Trek, she is.
Right now she's the one, which also kind of tells you the level of Star Trek these days on TV because it's on Paramount. But
yeah,
you know,
that's what everybody does with their shows now. It's on streaming. So that is the way. But yeah, the first three characters I thought of were all superheroes: Black Panther. Who else did I say?
Cyborg.
Black Panther, Cyborg, and then Miles Morales.
Oh, see, there you go. Miles Morales. That's probably the bigger one.
Because again, he's everywhere. His movies have been fire. His video game was fire. His comic books have been fire. I think that's
it. For me, it'd probably be Miles Morales 1, Black Panther 2, and Falcon at 3, probably. I think is probably my list. I'm like running back through to make sure how I feel about that, but like I feel pretty good about that. If somebody told me those were their 3 in a different order, I wouldn't even be that upset about it. Like that's respectable. And Cyborg makes sense too. I can't even knock that one because that almost has even more appeal to a younger audience in a lot of ways. So that kind of makes sense.
Because for most people, I think, well, I'll say most people, but I know certainly for me, you know, as a young kid reading comic books, superheroes, and then obviously when you see the superheroes, you go over to Walking Dead and all the other comic books that are there or the other side. But that was definitely my gateway into learning about sci-fi, fantasy. Everything came, you know, from being a little kid, seeing the Super Friends and going to the comic store. And so I guess the first one I would have encountered would have been Black Lightning, who unfortunately was wearing Daisy Dukes. But
sure,
that is what it is.
You know, maybe this just says like we don't get a lot of them in different media, and we probably need more because they seem to do well when we get them. You know.
And again, I'm excited about the Lanterns TV show. I'm hearing nothing but good things.
Same.
Aaron Pierre is getting all the roles right now, so he seems like definitely the guy to cast. I'm hearing nothing but good. Everything I'm hearing about the casting so far is like, I love it.
Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the social media machines while we're trying to watch some of our other stuff at times?
All right. App Trigger is on Blue Sky. And then, of course, apptrigger.com is the website where you can come over and see what taxes have been put on this week.
Yeah, it's almost a weekly basis these days. And as always, you can find me at PowrDragn, PowrDragn on most social stuff. And my goodness, come over and check me out on YouTube because I have been loading that thing up the last few days. There are tons of new videos over there. But wherever you are watching or listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please remember to take care of yourselves and your family. Remember to be awesome. And most importantly, be awesome to each other.